when you start planning right now, when you start coordinating, when you start putting your blueprint together right now, you then are in a position where you can be in a position where you can basically slam dunk the next year. And that requires a certain amount of calculating, it requires a certain amount of anticipation, and it requires a certain amount of imagination, it requires a certain amount of forecasting, thinking things through. But most importantly, I think it takes a certain amount of looking back over these past 9 months and being able to say, okay, well, what's been working, what's not been working as well as I want it to be working, and what could I do different to make sure that it works the way I need it to work moving forward. So that being said, I just wanted to break down for you, as in traditional 25 blueprint form, the 5 things you want to look at if you want to break this down properly. Okay. So on any given year, you have 5 kingdoms or 5 divisions of life that you dealt with or are dealing with, right? Those 5 areas, like I mentioned and I've mentioned before, are faith, fellowship, finances, feelings, and fitness. On any given year, if you really are, following your intuition, you had some spiritual practices, at least some mindset practices that either got better or kind of stayed the same, which really is almost as bad as it just declining, right? And so you had those 5 areas that I just mentioned in the faith category to look back over the past 9 months and say, wow, how did I really grow, right? Did my mindset get stronger? Did I get more focused? Did I use my imagination a little bit more? Was my mind enriched? What books did I read? What were some of my faith practices that really solidified my belief in myself, right? And or in the higher power? Like those areas, right? You had to account for time to engage and to support yourself in them. And so if you didn't give yourself a lot of time, or maybe didn't do as much reading or exploring, or maybe asking questions and getting some answers this past year, and you want that to be different going into this next year, you got to now account for that. You got to say to yourself, okay, great. Well, what are the retreats that you're going to go on? Where's the journal that you're going to keep your notes in and write things down in? Are you going to begin meditating more? And then if so, how are you going to honor yourself by, setting up the time and doing the meditation exercises you need? Whatever it is that you've got to do, right? You either did a remarkable job of it this past year, or you just absolutely didn't do anything, right? Or you were kind of wishy-washy with it. But going into this next year, you get an opportunity to genuinely just look from the, clear drawing board situation and say, okay, this is how I want to go about this. Right? I know it sounds simple, may even sound mundane, but this is the literal granular level of shifting. There's no noisemakers here, no hot takes. This is just genuinely a friend to a friend saying, hey, this is what a day in the life of looking ahead looks like. No sex appeal, no people in underwear running around, no bottles with the sparkles coming off of it. Okay, right? No horns, no pom 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 pom. Right? This is just kitchen table talk conversation. And so that's one of the areas and some of the questions you want to start reflecting on, right? Then you've got fellowship, which is all things in your social life. Right? There's some relationships this year that we had to cut off, right? Some relationships we had to say, all right, yeah, we're not going. This is where I'm gonna head out. Right? We had our moments this year doing that, right? Well, you don't want to wait till December to do this work, guys. I'm just telling you. I just got to give it to you straight. You don't want to wait till November. You don't want to wait till December to be reflecting on the year and how it's been. No, you want to start right now. Start thinking through who were those friendships that you had to just really part ways with and why, right? Who are the people that this year you definitely want to either, send a text to during the holidays, or send a greeting card, or make sure that they're on your gift list, or whatever it is, or your phone call list that you just call on there on during the holidays, and just tell them how much you appreciate them. Like, taking that genuine action and noting that and putting that in existence in a calendar somewhere is a matter of really genuine love and self-respect, right? Because these are the people that are holding you down, supporting you, right? Bringing laughter and joy to your life. They, at the very least, I think, can benefit and or deserve the opportunity for you to, contribute to them by just letting them know how much you appreciated what they brought to your life this year, right? And then how to cultivate that. For some of us, yeah, we definitely need some either new friends, new networks, new partnerships, associations, affiliations, organizations that we're going to be a part of and collaborate with in a way that enriches our lives, right? This is what it takes. This is what it looks like. Okay. So that being said, you want to start evaluating that as well. Okay. And the financial, that kind of goes without saying, right? If you're not swimming in a money bin like Mr. Scrooge, right? Like Uncle Scrooge, I should say, back in remember that cartoon DuckTales? DuckTales, woo woo. No, 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 no. I'm dating myself, but you know how I'm talking. You know what I'm talking about. For those of you who are old enough to remember DuckTales, right? Must Uncle Scrooge, we used to swim in his money bin. If you don't have one of those, okay, or you don't have enough money to have one of those, there's work to be done in the financial kingdom. Okay, okay, okay. All right. So that being said, there are certain things you want to take a look at as far as whatever your arrangements are. Right? There's a conversation with your financial advisor, covering and making sure you're appropriately insured, um, putting your money towards, like, sound investments, et cetera, et cetera. Right? I mean, whatever your criteria is, I'm going to say, what your money work is. Okay. And you got to work it. You got to put in the due diligence to figure it out, to sort it out, et cetera, et cetera. So if the, assets didn't go faster than the liabilities this year, we still got work, right? Still got work to do. So you got all those pieces of the puzzle, and then the emotional kingdom is all things related to your emotional life. Right? What brought you joy? What brought you peace? And when did that happen? Here's something. Here's a big nugget and banger that I want to share with you. So if you look back over this past year, these past 9 months, there are times that you were just at a high. And you felt like, oh man, I just want this to last. And I want you to think about when those times were. I'm going to ask you, did you schedule the next one? So if you had a moment and you had an episode where you were treat, whatever it was, did you book yourself, set yourself for the next one in 2023? Right? And if you didn't, put in the schedule a time for you to do that. And if you need to set aside money to be able to do that, or to, commit yourself to it, let's do that. Just filled and high on life, and just at peace. They deserve a repeat. And in order for you to have the repeat, you've got to start organizing and setting yourself up and putting a note in the calendar for that to happen. I'm reminded as I thought this at how many people feel like planning and thinking ahead and doing all this, that it's somehow either like not practical or not worth doing or something. I don't know what to call it, right? But it's like, what? Like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. Right? Why wouldn't you plan an account for your joy? Why wouldn't you plan an account for your peace? Why wouldn't you plan an account for your peace of mind? Okay. So there's that accounting for, again, putting it in a calendar. And then we get to this last part, which is your physical kingdom, right? Physical kingdom includes all things in your environment, your food, your exercise, your clothes, the condition of your car, the condition of your home, all things related to the physical world, the logistics of your life, travel, as far as like what it takes to get from A to B, right? Guys, this is the area that you want to start evaluating. Like, how were you more organized this past year than you were in the previous year, right? What worked for you as far as being organized this year? that you really, really enjoy. Make sure that that gets now systematically implemented, and or maybe you get some resources to get the digital systems support, right? So if it's like, hey, you did great on budgeting this year, well, was it software that helped you? Um, these five kingdoms, these five areas are areas that like they never change. They just are going to be what they are, right? Faith, fellowship, finances, feelings, and fitness. So now the wild part, as I'm walking you through this, is well, where do you keep this? All this stuff, all this information, all this, all these things that it takes to actually run your life. Your life is a business, right? Don't get that twisted. How do you keep it all together? Do you keep it all in your mind? Do you keep it all on the back of a napkin? Do you keep it on the back of an envelope? Well, I definitely, think it's a bad idea if you plan on doing it that way, right? You need some place where all of that should go. All of that should be captured or housed, right? And so what I've been talking about all year so far, and we'll continue to talk here of really taking inventory and then capturing in a blueprint. So that phase that I just walked you through is all what's called assessment, right? You're looking back and you're looking ahead and you're saying, okay, I've done the assessment. I've looked to see what is what, and maybe even, right, if you want to give yourself a score, you can do yourself a favor and give yourself a score on how you've done in those five kingdoms of faith, fellowship, finances, feelings, and fitness, right? So, um, I just realized something. Yeah, as you look at those five kingdoms, you got to have like a consistent way of evaluating yourself, right? You can't like be wishy-washy with like, oh well, I guess I did okay in this area. No, 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 no. You need a systematic way of looking, right? And looking at it. So when you look at, okay, the area of faith, well, what are the 3 or 5 things that you use as your criteria for judging whether or not you are in sound spiritual condition? Is it how much time you spend praying? Is it how much time you spend in church? Is it how much time you spend reading? Is it how much time you spend, telling others about your tradition or sharing and inspiring other people about your thing? Is that how much time you spend, telling others about your tradition or sharing and inspiring other people about your practice? Like, I mean, there's got to be some way that you measure yourself, right? It's not just arbitrary, okay? But at the very least, you get to pick and select how you want to evaluate yourself. All this to say that it is important to have a system of doing this. So the 25 blueprint, which I talked about, and you've heard me talk about, is the systematic way of looking at your life in a way that gives you some juice, some power to feel like, man, okay, I see where I'm off and I know exactly how to get back on. Right? A lot of times we're just so arbitrary, like, oh, I just feel like it's Monday and I don't feel like my life is coming together. Okay, it feels a little bit better, but my life is still falling apart. Right? It's kind of how it plays out. And but with a systematic way of going through this, you're now in a position where you can start documenting and noting what things scored low on and what things you want to score better on. But now you know what actions you're going to take. And that's that second step of addressing, right? What you've assessed, right? We talk all about that inside of the blueprint community. Um, and it's just a common conversation to just be very clear about that, right? Without beating yourself up. So, all of this stuff that I just talked about is remarkably overwhelming, right? It can be, let me put it that way, it can be remarkably overwhelming because there's a lot of moving parts to our lives, right? And without a way to track and kind of contain all these moving parts, life gets really, really slippery and overwhelming and struggling, right? Becomes a struggle. So that being said, this is really an invitation for you to consider. Look, if you don't have a way to track these things, if you don't have a way to kind of organize, keep yourself organized around these things, um, now is a great time to start accounting for what's happened in the past and what you want to happen in the future, because these last few months of the year, they're going. They're going to go by so fast. right? I mean, like we were just here last year, wasn't it? Just October last year, we were like, ooh, what's going on, right? So they're going to go by really, really quick. And so, what's in your best interest is to really have a way to track this. So, if you need those types of tools, that kind of a resource, get yourself a 24-hour blueprint planner and or the full planning system to be able to start to coordinate and plan your life accordingly. This is the part where you now can get to be the architect. You get to be the engineer because now you're seeing how your life is put together. And now you're seeing also how you can create a blueprint to take actions to build the new life or the aspects of your life that you want to see different going into 2023. Right. So if you need the tools, if you need the resources, you need a way to sort of like, have a fire lit under you a little bit, this is a chance for you to get access to the 24-hour blueprint and get the download worksheets and start putting some things together. I'm just going to give you guys a quick kind of look at something, right? And this is a little impromptu, but so this binder, right? You don't have to use one of these, right? So I got this binder here. Okay, you guys can see this. This binder contains everything from calendars to checklists, right? Give you an idea of what I'm talking about, right? So it's not just hearsay. So here's like examples of calendar sheets, right? And I just kind of put this in here tentatively as I plan out, do a little bit of planning for the year. It's got my brain dump sheets. You guys have if you've heard me talk about the brain dump sheets, it's always a good thing. I've got, so see how I got this. This is the section that goes into all things spiritual that I need to explore or study or reflect on or take action with. I've got my checklists in there, right? Let's see if I can pull that. We can kind of see it, right? Got a little bit of checklisting, right? Remember I talked about that social area. We got a section that kind of blocks off people. If you end up on that, if you end up in that section, ooh, you getting the cutoff. No, just kidding, just kidding. That's just the area for me to assess what my networks, associations, and all that's about, right? So anyway, all that to say, this is actually a real thing, right? It's not just hype and talking about it. Now, the beauty of this is to wrap up with this whole idea of being an engineer and an architect of your own life is, any just structure you've ever been in, stepped foot in, that's certified, and been sort of gotten the blessing of a certificate of occupancy, right, in this world. um, there was somebody who built it off of drawings, put it all together, had everything work, the plumbing work, the lighting work, the air work, the structural parts of it work, right? And somebody had to sign off on that and say, yeah, this is a place that people can live, or yeah, this is a place that people can do business in, right? Because there was documents for them to actually look and compare what's built, what's on the paper, and how sound a structure that thing is based on, of course, what was built, which was on paper. And like I've done in previous videos, I'm still kind of shocked and blown away. And I really do believe perhaps I'm maybe the voice of this revolution, this revolutionary way of really looking at our lives, um, like the structures that we live in, right? Like to some extent, sad but true, the structures that you live in are going to live longer than you. The house that you're living in, depending, of course, presuming it's decently made, you're gonna die before the house falls apart. The structures are going to be there. The steel, the cement, all that is going to have more longevity than you. It's going to outlive you, right? But why not give the house a run for its money by, giving yourself a little bit more runway or a little bit more hang time or air time that you need, right? Lifetime that you need in order for you to enjoy it more. Enjoy the kids, enjoy the family, enjoy your, presuming that your significant other sort of is a cohort lifer with you, whatever you're interested in. Like, put yourself in a position to really build a life that is as solid as the living environments that we allow ourselves to live in and work in and play in, right? So that's the opportunity you have. So that said, let's let's make sure we're ready for 2023. Okay. plan plan with plan with that right mindset, plan with that right heart set, plan with that right spirit set. Use tools that respect you. Use tools that honor you, that honor who you are, that honor what you're about, that make sense, that don't insult you with little squares on a piece of paper to plan out your day. You know, like I can't. Yeah, don't get me started on that. Use tools that will honor and support you in building a big life, right? Like you wouldn't expect a huge skyscraper to be built off of this little index card. It's crazy. If somebody told you they built a skyscraper off of drawings on an index card, you'd be like, who's smoking what? So similarly with building your life, take the time, take the initiative to just really plan these things out. A lot of the online voices bark at us, execute, execute, execute. Um, okay. You know, can you imagine somebody walking up to a construction site and just yelling at the laborers, execute, execute, execute? Okay. And those laborers not having any drawings or guidance on how to use those drawings to build the structure. I'm just saying, it sounds crazy, right? Like that just doesn't even make sense. But what I'm trying to tell you is that if we're going to be greater executors, we've got to learn and understand and appreciate this process of creating blueprints for our lives. We just do, right? And then until those blueprints become ingrained in our habits and our behaviors and our relationships and our interactions, and then we can kind of go a little bit on cruise control. But until then, we've got work to do. We've got plans to make and little, drawings and things to put together to just make our lives work. Now, of course, you don't have to be an artist or anything like that. I'm just kind of using that metaphor. But at the end of the day, there are tools, there are resources. You just saw me walk you through it and share that with you. And these worksheets work. They just work. Okay. And so that's it. All right. Happy New Year for those of you who are maybe seeing this at the end of the year. I wish you would have seen it back in October when it was originally created. But for those of you who are seeing this now, take some action. Send me a direct link. I will be hosting some workshops to kind of really walk people through this process if you're interested in that. But at the very least, what you need is a 24-hour blueprint, some planner that will help you awaken to what you need to do on a day-to-day basis in order for you to really live that life you kind of crave and desire to experience. Okay. All right, good people. Appreciate you. For those of you who are on YouTube, thanks a lot for checking me out over here. And then for those of you who are on IG, thanks for being such a great supportive family. Of course, like this video. Let's just let the IT algorithmic bots know that there's like value and some substance here. Just like, comment, drop an emoji. But so that we can kind of stay wherever we need to stay to get the word out, because I think a lot of people really could benefit from this kind of thinking, this kind of message, in order for them to really, um, live their lives to the full. So, all right. So that's it, guys. Appreciate you. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Have an amazing week. Don't forget, get your 25 Blueprint Planner if you need one. And